being streamed live. My name is Glenn Coggy. I am with Labor Front, and we're proud to have John Kiehne, candidate for 26th Senate District, on our edition of Table Talk. John's been a friend of mine for a number of years. I met him when he ran the last time, and he is a great candidate, but even more than that, he's a great guy. So we're going to find out, I know, right? So we're going to find out why John decided to get in the race and run and what his qualifications are. And we'll have just a conversation about a handful of things. So John, why don't you tell us who you are and what you're about, buddy?
Hey, thank you very much. And number one, it's been 3 cycles now. So I met you about 5 years ago. Yeah, because there was 2 races previous. So a little about myself. John Kiehne, running, as Glenn said, in Senate District 26, Missouri's State Senate District 26, which includes Eureka, where we live, that little part of St. Louis County, Franklin County, Warren County, Osage County, Gasconade County. So same number of people basically, but a whole lot more real estate there due to redistricting. I previously ran for State House in 110, which was kind of centered around Eureka, some Pacific Labadee over into Wildwood. Before that, I ran for State Senate against Senator Dave Schatz. And at the time, Senate District 26 was Franklin County and most of Wildwood, a little bit of Chesterfield, Ellisville, over in that area. So this is my 3rd time running. And as we go on, we'll talk about some other things that I have done, that we have done. I say we because I can't do it on my own. I can show up, but I need support from people like Glenn and you, whoever's watching this. I'm just one person. And in order to win political battles and win elections, we need a whole lot of people to work together to get people interested in those candidates, to get people to support those candidates, and to get people to the polls for those candidates. My background, born and raised in St. Charles, Missouri, a number of years ago. 5th generation Missouri native. We have a family farm down in Cape Girardeau where all my family came from. We've been down there for about 130 years. My father lives, I'd say literally lives about 50 feet from where he was born on our family farm. And my parents were both educators. I personally have been a musician, a professional musician my entire adult life. I started at 15. And so it's been 35, 40 years that I've been playing music professionally. I've toured the country many, many times. I lived in Boston for 10 years. And 15 years ago, on September 23rd, 2007, at 12:03 a.m., my wife, Michelle, and I, and not even my wife at the time, our lives changed a lot. And we entered a realm of caring for other people's children, becoming foster providers, becoming familiar with behavioral health, with government institutions, government providers, behavioral health, and et cetera, et cetera. So from becoming a foster provider, a foster advocate, a now legal guardian, and an adoptive parent over these 15 years, I have run into a lot of issues with governance on the state level, on the federal level, dealing with behavioral institutions, or say behavioral facilities, behavioral providers, dealing with social workers, dealing with social work agencies, dealing with children's division, dealing with educators, special education, et cetera, et cetera. So much is wrapped into that. That is what brought me into politics. As a small business owner, as I've been for a long time, as a musician, I've been a contract worker, and I've been the person that's provided the work. I understand filing Schedule Cs, doing lots of 1099, stuff like that. When I was a kid, I worked in restaurants and bars, not only as a touring musician, as a gigging musician, but when I didn't have those gigs and I lived in Boston, when I first rolled in there when I was 22, I was working 80 hours a week on top of playing music to make sure that I could pay the rent. So I've worked in restaurants and bars, and I've done everything from humping ice to managing a place and everything in between. So that's kind of where I'm starting from. We live in Eureka, my wife and I. We have 2 small children, and they keep me, I don't know if they're keeping me young, but they certainly keep me busy. So that's where we're starting.
Well, that's awesome, John. And you're right. It has been a while that I've known you. And, it's good years, and we've had a lot of good conversations. So I'm probably more on a friendship basis with you than some of the other candidates that we've had on the show. So I don't want to get too far off into the weeds about friendship and stuff. I want to focus on the issues and what you want to bring to the 26th Senatorial District. I think that's what people are tuning in for. And we're going to get right to it. Now, look, I know that your parents were teachers. They were part of the teachers unions. You yourself, I don't know if you've ever been in the musicians union or anything, but your your roots are pretty deep in organized labor. So why don't we expound on that a little bit? And well, we can talk about right to work and some of the other labor issues that we face in Missouri. But I'm going to start out by asking you this question. In the 26th Senatorial District, the voters of Missouri voted about 62% against right to work. And the current state senator from that district has been a large proponent against the will of his own people. How do we reach out to those politicians in Jeff City and get them to understand that the will of the people is the supreme law in the state of Missouri?
Well, that's a very good question. And, I had an interview yesterday where the interview was a short interview, and the interviewer wanted to know, like, what was my top, like, if I could boil everything down to what my approach was, what I'm wanting to do as a legislator, I did. Let the welfare of the people be the supreme law, as you sort of quoted there, and that's the thing: the welfare of the people, not the welfare of a few people, not the welfare of a few business owners, but the welfare of the people in general. And most people work a job, most people work for people, and there are business owners. And quite honestly, statistically, 99.4% of the businesses in Missouri are small businesses, believe it or not. So not all of those are, a large percentage of those are actually self-employed and very small businesses. But so to your question exactly, what do we do to get them to convince? Well, I see a culture war here. I see a culture war more than a battle of ideas or a battle of logic, because number one, in my history, my parents and many of my family members have been public educators and benefited, I'll say primarily, this is a big thing, from the PSRS system. The retirement system in the Missouri schools is one of the best retirement systems, the most stable, reliable retirement systems in the country. And just the fact that maybe the wages are not great for a teacher, the fact that if you're vested, that you can get a really reliable retirement is a big deal for teachers. That's been, I can see my parents have been, it's over 30 years now that PSRS has their retirement has sustain them. And that's a big deal for workers. When you're looking at retirement age, I am 55 years old, and people do start retiring at 55. And you start thinking about, how much am I going to need a month on top of whether I'm getting Social Security, I have benefits, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of folks, maybe they have not been paying into a retirement system. Maybe they have not saved any money. Maybe they have a lot. 50% of the workers in this country work low wage jobs. Okay. So you know that, and I know that. And most people who work low wage jobs are not putting money aside. So what we have to cut through, number one, is let's be real about what's going on here. When you work a union gig, you're going to make more money on the job. You're going to have more reliable work, and then you're going to get benefits on top of that. So you're going to get your medical, you're going to get a savings plan of some kind for retirement, and you're going to actually get paid pretty well for your work. Actually, my brother-in-law, who was a teamster and a meat cutter in the St. Louis area, moved to Florida recently. We said, hey, old man, they're a right to work state. Well, let me tell you that his experience of 6 years as a union man went when he went to Florida and realized that you don't get the pay, you don't get the benefits, and they don't have really any intention of guaranteeing you anything. As a musician, I have not been in the musician union, because the musicians union in this area and in general applies to people who might play in a symphony or do like theater work, stuff like that. But your typical club or touring musician doesn't really, the musicians union does not apply to that. Now, when we do concert tours and stuff on bigger shows, you have union electricians, you have union stagehands, stuff like that. But the musicians in general don't tend to be union. And I see the other end of that in that I see musicians, and this is affecting my life, and it bothers me that musicians who are doing, say, your regular, very busy gigging musicians, a lot of them make the same pay today in 2022 that we were making in 2002, that we're making in 1992. And I talk to these people like, listen, you're still doing a gig out there for $75, and for a 4-hour gig on a Friday night. Why are you doing that? It makes it very difficult to sustain a lifestyle when your pay has not gone up for 20 or 30 years. There are select few people who will do more corporate stuff, and that's a smaller crowd of people who do weddings and corporate stuff who get paid a little bit more. But most of your gigging musicians are not getting paid very well. They're not getting benefits. And up until recently, Obamacare, a lot of us were not even couldn't even get health insurance, or at least affordable health insurance. So for most of my adult life, trying to get health insurance as a basically an independent contractor has been very difficult. You also notice that during the pandemic era, when everything shut down, for the first time, independent contractors could actually file for unemployment benefits. And that has never happened before. So if you're an out of work musician, typically you're out of luck. It doesn't matter how much you're working, doesn't matter how much you're paying in, you didn't really qualify. So there's, a couple of issues that I'd say were off the top of my head.
Well, that's great. One of the things when we talk about right to work, to get kind of circle us back into that category, they do nothing to help unions, but when unions suffer, working families suffer. And one of the things that you touched on is the better pay and benefits of union jobs. Well, that cuts into the profit margins of some of these companies and corporations. And as we all know, they have become so greedy that they don't care about working people. It's always going to be, and I know it's on your shirts. I've seen it. We've talked about it. It's going to be profits over people all the time, and Wall Street over Main Street all the time. And most of these politicians that we have in Missouri, as well as in Jeff City, as well as in Washington, D.C., their main goal is to satisfy their corporate masters. And they trample the little man to do it. But I kind of want to move on. And, you're running in a rural part of the state. And what has the reception been so far? If you've gotten out on the doors, any of the interactions that you've had, how well are you received?
That's a good question. Real quick, I want to circle back and then I'll answer your question, because there's another part. You mentioned right to work. And I really quick want to mention that a lot of people, even union folks, don't realize it's not just right to work. It's prevailing wage, ending the prevailing wage, which can really hurt, I would say, rural workers more than people who live around a more urban kind of area, which you can comment on and better add to that. We have paycheck deception. We have an erosion of discrimination laws. We have workers' comp reform. We have tort reform. There are so many ways that Republican legislators tear away at workers' rights, at your right to bargain, collectively bargain, at your right to unionize, organize, et cetera, et cetera. But to your question, how have I been? What's my reception been like? I'll tell you what. With the Democrats that I've talked to so far, it's been great. I mean, I was living in Franklin County for quite a while, got a good reception there. We knocked a lot of doors in 2018. And I will tell you that I got more votes than President Biden and Kamala Harris in the 2020 election in Franklin County. Now, that was not a winner, but just saying, the people, they're pretty receptive to my message, and apparently were more receptive than the person who won the presidency. That being said, 35% is not a winner. So I'm getting, I've been hitting all the central committee meetings, the club meetings, labor club meetings, and whatever events that I can. We're going to start knocking doors here in a week or two. I've been postcarding. So one of my first projects on this, since I'm going to do the Senate and I filed for the Senate race, is that we're trying to identify our top Democrats all around this district. And of course, there's going to be more around this area where we are. So most of the voters in Senate District 26 are kind of St. Clair area up to Warrenton, up 47, and then over in this area. So that's been one thing. So far, a great reception. I think we're all on the same page. I think that the Democrats that I've talked to are excited to have somebody to vote for, to have somebody to knock a door for, to come to a meeting and say, hey, I'm running and I'm doing something. So that, I feel like I've got a good start on it.
Right. It sounds like you do. And it sounds like the reception's actually been pretty good. It's really tough for Democrats in rural Missouri. It's hard for the Democratic clubs and committees to find candidates to run. I ran for county clerk in 2010 in Crawford County, and I got creamed. It was not a pretty sight, but trying to find people to run is really difficult. And if you have a D behind your name, you automatically lose votes. And I just don't understand why, because the philosophical differences of politics is really pretty thin between the two parties. You want a strong state government, you want a strong country, you want good paying jobs for your district, and for the country. You want to protect the jobs that we have here. how different is that from some of the rural voters that you run into?
I'm telling you, man, I mentioned it before. It's a culture war. It's seriously a culture war. We just did a March for Your Lives rally there in Rolla here a week ago, and actually it was fine. We did a pro-choice rally in Union about a month ago. It was, for the most part, we got a lot of positive feedback from that. Very little negative feedback. I think that in general, we share as human beings, we share a lot of values, and say as voters, we share a lot of values. But the Democratic Party, I hate to dive into this, but the Democratic Party collectively, nationally and statewide, has not committed nearly enough resources to our rural areas. So we have 114 counties plus St. Louis City. It's 115, right? We have 100, 101 rural counties, depending on which, what your definition of that is, about 100, 101. And we just have rural counties where Democrats haven't shown up, where we don't have people from outside the area, or I'm saying that area, so they're from Missouri, but they're like, hey, we're going to make sure that XXX county that's in a rural area is being represented. What support do you need? Let's make sure that there's a central committee. Let's make sure that you have the resources you need to do the bare minimum. It hasn't happened. On the other hand, the opposition, the Republican Party, for decades has been controlling media sources. They have been, putting candidates out there, supporting candidates, showing up for candidates all over the state, whether it's in nowhere or closer to the city. So, that we're in two now, where we are in Eureka and Franklin County, and that's Dan Wagner. So we're talking about, that's pretty close to the city there. We still have that Republican Congresswoman that's been there for a while. So the Democrats, solution, Democrats need to show up from wherever they are and start working in these rural communities. And I'm not the first one to say it. I'm not going to be the last one to say it. But I'm somebody here that recognizes this, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've been on a number of committees, Democratic committees in this state, from statewide to regional to local. And what I can tell you is, as a candidate, I can raise money, and I can take that money and I can get a piece of lit, and I can be a Democratic candidate going to a door in my district and say, hello, I'm a Democrat. Here's what I stand for. Here's what we stand for. How do you feel about this? I want you to be successful. I want you to be healthy. I want you to have a good business. I want you to have a good job. And I want that, I want that for the people who I'm running against. I want it for everybody in Missouri. Make sure that you're healthy, you're safe. We have all these issues with gun safety now. We have issues with the environment. We have issues with labor. We have issues with issues. We have attacks on the LGBTQ community. We have attacks on brown skin. We have all this stuff. But in general, if you put us all in the room together and say, hey, you want clean drinking water? Hey, do you want your kids to be safe at school? Hey, do you want them to graduate from high school and be able to get a good job, go to good college? Let's be real. Let's sit down. Let's talk to these people. But the Democratic Party, who hypothetically has more resources, it needs to find whatever resources they don't have and start sequentially, methodically, getting our message into these rural communities, which make up most of the real estate in Missouri, which is what I'm trying to do.
Well, John, I got a little bit of a biased opinion about you because I consider you to be a friend, but you and Jessica Piper up in HD1, Adrian Plank, I don't remember, he's 46, I think, up in the Columbia, Missouri area. There's a handful of rural Democrats that are working extremely hard. And I think the key, and you're good at it, Jessica's good, all three of you are really good at it. And that's being strong on your message and not being afraid to talk about the controversial issues that are distracting people from what should really matter. And that's clean water, clean air, good paying jobs, safe jobs, a good education system. Those are the issues that are critical to our state and our nation. And instead of getting caught up in some of these other controversial issues, you have been focusing on that, and I applaud you for it, as has Adrian and Jesse Piper up in HD1. You guys are leading the way and leading the charge, and you're doing a great job of it. I hate to bring it up because it is a controversial issue, but this whole thing with the school shootings and stuff like that, do you have an idea as a son of educators on what we can do to bring safety to our children in schools?
Well, you know what? Once you're in politics, there's no such thing as controversy anymore. We're all waiting it. Let's be honest, man.
Right.
Let's not sugarcoat it. We're in Missouri. It's very, a very red state. And the Republican Party tends to be some folks who are Republican politicians and talking heads are very opinionated, as we are. But we have different opinions, right? So I'll tell you one thing. My father, who's was an elementary school principal for a long time, and honestly, he's kind of Trumpy. But there's a couple of things that I've gotten out of my dad. Number one, he doesn't want a CAFO moving in next door. So if you don't know what a CAFO is, we'll get to that in a minute. But number two, he said, I never had a teacher that I would want to give a gun to. And and my father, he grew up on a farm. We always had guns. We always shot stuff. Now, with gun ownership and gun use, we were always safe. They were not toys. They weren't things we took a picture of and took a picture of the family with guns and stuff. It's kind of weird to me how I was raised. Again, kind of raised in a rural area, not unlike a lot of places in Franklin County. St. Charles County is not like that anymore. But when I was a kid, it was, and we went to the farm every other week. So I don't understand the fascination with guns and high powered guns and wanting to look like you're in the military. My son did 6 years in the Army Reserves. My brother was a Marine. Hey, if you want to play Army, friggin' get in the Army. Go sign up. If you're young enough and healthy enough and old enough and healthy enough, go sign up. You can be a soldier. That's great. Don't do it in Sullivan. But that being said, what can we do? Number one, I've also been somebody who has cared for and protected victims of domestic violence. And I mean serious, bad domestic violence, not just a pop in the head kind of stuff, real bad. Red flag laws. There are men that will beat a woman and they are violent and they have issues. And that's a whole other issue, but they probably do not know. There's no probably about it. People who commit violent crimes really don't need to have a firearm available to them. I believe the statistic is that women who live in a house with a firearm are 5 times more likely to die at the hands of someone with a firearm. So red flag laws for sure. Close the loopholes in purchasing a firearm. We don't need high capacity magazines. You don't need 100 rounds to shoot a deer. I'm sorry, you don't need 100 rounds to shoot a groundhog. I understand that they're enthusiasts that like to do things and they enjoy. I've target shooted as well, and I've had family members who like to not professionally, but they like to sport, shoot things. That's fine. But this fascination and this acquiring military style weapons in a home, I don't know if you noticed it too. We just had some guy come down our road here, and was captured right by our house shooting a gun from his motorcycle, going down 100, down the Pacific, got on 44, toward Eureka, shooting his gun, aiming his gun at people, and he actually ran off the road right by our house and ran into the woods behind our house. Okay, so this stuff could be anywhere. It could be your house, my house, it could be in the city. Gun violence is a serious issue. There's a whole mental health. We need to make sure that we address our really seriously fun mental health. That's kind of that behavioral health, mental health thing is what brought me into politics. But these are not always mental health issues or things that would apply to that. But red flag laws, number one, this stuff has already been, they're kind of hashing some of this stuff out in the bipartisan bill they're working on with the U.S. Senate and I believe the U.S. House as well in Congress. And common sense gun laws. I love what Moms Man Action is promoting. And I just say that we can go deeper in that. We need to deal with the prevalence of violence and the enabling and facilitation of violence and violent thought and aggression in our society. And I don't think it's video games. I think that we just, with social media and so many things going on, we have people who may or may not have decided to be violent or whatever. They have easy access to a firearm. A 2-year-old can pick up a gun and shoot somebody. So, we have a number of issues that we need to deal with, from policy to really digging into what we're doing as a culture.
Right. I'd love to see some of the gun people come up with some ideas, legitimate ideas, not just say, put a machine gun turret on top of a school or whatever. I know that's over the top, but I mean, legitimate ideas to help address it. You don't want to take, neither of us want to take anybody's guns. And I don't mean to speak for you, but in a
No, I
number
don't.
in the conversations we've had, it's not about taking people's guns. It's about responsibility and accountability. I think
If
those
you
are
if
two
you're a
issues.
responsible gun owner, you can keep your gun. I'm not interested in guns personally as an adult. I have other interests, but if you're interested in guns and you're a responsible gun owner, you don't shoot yourself or others, then you're
Right,
good. That doesn't bother me. The problem that what we're talking about here are people who are not responsible gun owners who have really easy access to getting a gun, depending on the state. Their issues. It's funny when we did the Raleigh March for Our Lives thing here a week ago. I talked to one of the organizers, and they talked to local police about, hey, we're doing this thing, right? And one of the questions that the local police said, "Oh, you're not open carrying, are you?" So I think even people in law enforcement have their concerns about things like open carry, where they're just not really sure, who they need to be watching out for. And people can perceive someone open carrying a large weapon, a long rifle or whatever in public is a threat. Just because you see somebody doing it's not a law enforcement officer. And secondary, the SAPA law that they passed, actually penalizes law enforcement for coordinating with federal law enforcement on gun related crimes. Why would we hamstring law enforcement, the people who are, blue lives, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand why they're penalizing and threatening, law enforcement from pursuing violent crimes in this state.
right, right. Well, let's move on. You've touched on education and labor. Um, if you could be king for a day and you could make any rules that would benefit or for the 26th Senatorial District, what would be some of the goals that you would be pushing for?
It's a good question. So I hadn't really prepared for that one, but that's fine because you kind of put me on the spot with it, and I had to think because I literally let the welfare of the people be the supreme law. So I'm in that question. I'm trying to think what would really benefit the people in my district. What would they appreciate? What would they really appreciate? I answered the question. Got called by the Missourian yesterday or the day before about they want to expand Highway 47. And so Highway 47 from St. Clair to Washington. And so great idea. I think, depending on there's some residential stuff there and whatever, but they're talking about the money issue. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about is money. Okay, so you want everybody to have health care? How much is it going to cost me? So you want everybody to have a great education? How much is it going to cost me? I don't want to pay taxes. So and so if I take that, taxation is theft thing out of there, which is not my belief, but a lot of folks have it's kind of like an internet meme. What's important to people? They need to be healthy. They need to have access to healthcare. We can't make them go, but we should make sure that every person in this state, in this country, and honestly on this planet, has access to quality, affordable healthcare. If you can afford to pay a little bit, great. But I'm looking at how much we pay for healthcare versus how much it might be to have a nationalized system. And in a lot of models, you end up paying less taxes to have a nationalized model than what you're paying, in your monthly premiums. It depends where you work, or even if you don't work, and how expensive that healthcare can be. Number two, I would like to make sure that our roads and bridges are safe. People use roads and bridges every single day, no matter what you do, how much money you make, what color skin you have, gay, straight, whatever. We have to have safe roads and bridges to have a civilized society, to get around, et cetera, et cetera. We have to fund it. I know MoDOT has said that they're $853 million underfunded every year. Fortunately, we got the infrastructure money, and we also got some of that CARES Act funding. So we got a little bump in funding, and we also got the gas tax, that fuel tax that the legislature, kind of pushed through. An interesting thing about that Highway 47 expansion is that the county presiding commissioner, Tim Brinker, who's typically Mr. Freedom, was to maybe make sure that if we're going to do that, we do it pretty soon before somebody decides to cancel the gas tax, the fuel tax, the additional fuel tax. So, I think people have to recognize that if we want to have a civilized society, it's going to cost money. So you have, we talked about, good schools. Definitely good schools. It's my top three. I want to make sure that each and every child in this state in Senate District 26, which is largely rural, and we have some schools in Senate District school districts in Senate District 26 and around Senate District 26. They're on 4-day weeks. And they're on 4-day weeks not because it was a great idea to better educate the kids. They're on 4-day weeks because of money, because of budget funding, mostly because of paying teachers a competitive salary to have to drive to a rural place because maybe they don't have teachers in the area. Number two, the transportation funding, which was supposed to kind of by statute be funded at about 75% of the district's budget. It's been about 17%. So that's really hamstringed a lot of districts who are dependent upon local revenue to pay their teachers, to pay for transportation, et cetera, especially, in districts in rural areas that people have to take a bus. But definitely making sure that our schools are equally funded. I believe that we need to raise our state funding formula, the amount of state funding formula that will give a little relief to some of the people who live in a neighborhood like me who pay, we pay a lot in property taxes to have great schools. We're in the Rockwood School District, and it's one of the best school districts out of over 500 school districts in the state. We're like number 1, number 4, number 5. We're always in that like top 5, top 10 school districts, but it's because we have so much local revenue. If we can raise the amount of money from a state perspective that we put into that budget for public schools, then we can have much better outcomes in the vast majority of the school districts in the state. And then the people who complain about paying taxes in these areas where we're paying high property taxes, we can back it off a little bit. They won't need as much local revenue for that. But some of the Republicans' ideas about cutting the local revenue when we can't afford it, like they're trying to do in St. Charles County, would really hamstring not only schools, but it's going to hamstring libraries. It's going to hamstring local first responders. So again, all this stuff that my wishes all seem to revolve around money, but I just have to add in there, man, civil rights. And I know that 90, 92, 93, 95, 97% of the people in my district, in my area, maybe white. Statistically, about 10% of them are gay or LGBTQ. But I believe that we need to extend civil rights to each and every Missouri citizen, ST26 citizen, American citizen is guaranteed in the Constitution, regardless of whether they're gay, they're straight, they're black, they're white, they're rich, they're poor, whatever. I think that if you don't have civil rights, if you're not respected as a person in this country, in this world, on this planet, then everything else doesn't matter.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's very well put. How can people get a hold of you, John?
That's a very good question. I'm not too hard to get a hold of. You can find me online at www.johnkiehne.com and check this out. I didn't wear a t-shirt but that's johnkiehne.com. It's one of the John Kiehne, that's how you spell it, JOHNKIEHNE. You can see it's the representative shirt. We got a throwback from the previous state Senate race, John Kiehne. People Over Profit, KIEHNE, JOHNKIEHNE.com. You can find me on social media at John Kiehne for Mo everywhere. I'm more busy on some platforms than others. You're doing a great job, by the way, on TikTok. I posted one thing on TikTok. So I love what you're doing on TikTok, and Jess Piper and some of those other folks have really leaned into the TikTok thing. And I know how to do it. It's just, I need a tail or something. I guess I need a staff to do that for me. I don't know.
You can do it. The thing about TikTok is that I was shocked because I have been doing Labor Front on Facebook for 5 years. And I got just over 2,500 members in the group, and that's great. And we put out a lot of good information. There's a lot of contributors that do a very good job of educating the general public, as well as union members on progressive issues and political issues. So over 5 years, I got 2,500 members. I've been doing TikTok for about 6 months now, and I'm just a tad below 10,000 members, or followers, they call them. And my videos have been viewed almost 600,000 times.
Awesome. So, that's good. Yeah. I love them.
It's a good format, and it's an opportunity to get a short message out. Jess Piper, I think she's leading the way on that kind of stuff. She is
He
really,
really
really good.
has.
And I think one of the things I'm going to do, and we'll close it up here in just a minute, I'd like to do a roundtable discussion with rural Democrats. You, Jess, Adrian Plank, maybe a few more. We can just bring everybody in. We can talk about what works in rural Missouri, what doesn't, what we can do to improve it. You know, look, I'm born and raised, lived in rural Missouri about 90% of my life, maybe a little longer than that. And there's a lot of great people out here. And there's a lot of people, regardless of their political affiliation, that want the same things. When you went through your wish list for your King for a Day segment, that's probably parallel to what 85 or 90% of the voters want. So we just have to find a way to reach out to them and not get caught up in some of these wedge issues that divide us. You know, I call them the 5Gs: God, guns, gays, gynecology, which is abortion, and greed. And
Yep.
those are the things that we get beat over the head with day in and day out. But when you get past that, the majority of us want the same thing. We want a strong country. We want to be able to breathe the air and drink the water. We want everybody to be treated equally. Nobody should be discriminated against. And that's something that we didn't even discuss. But, you know, you're in an interracial marriage. You've got African-American children, which they're absolutely adorable, by the way. And you just adopted them, you know, and you do a wonderful job with those kids. Um, we all want about the same things. There's very few lines of demarcation between us. And if we can get past them and realize that, you know, we all really want about the same thing, our country will be better, our state will be better. And you and Jess and Adrian and a handful of others in rural Missouri are leading the way. So I thank you for that. Um, look John up on Facebook, look him up on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Go to his website. Donate money. If you can't donate money, donate time. Help John get the word out. John's a great candidate, not just because you're my friend. You're a great candidate, and you can't be afraid of the issues, and you're not. So that's the biggest part of a part of running in rural Missouri, is not being shy on any of the issues and being able to address whatever concerns the voters have. So you do a great job, John, and I look forward to getting together with you again sometime soon. Now, I'm going to leave it up.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm going to let you close it out. Give us your closing statement, Mr. Kiehne.
Thank you so much. Number one, thank you, Glenn, for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that in the past you participated in some labor, focused stuff that I've done as well. I miss doing, the number of labor things that we were doing prior to COVID. So, doing Labor Day, hopefully the Labor Day parade will be happening this year. I am once again co-endorsed by the Greater St. Louis Labor Council, AFL-CIO. So I am definitely supportive of labor for a good number of reasons, which I've already enumerated. But, really quick, it's only been 38 minutes, and I don't know how Glenn thinks that he's going to get out of here in like 39 minutes, because it's not going to happen. But, because hi, I'm John Kiehne, and I'm running for state Senate, Missouri's 26th Senate District, and you're never going to get out in 39 minutes with me. It's just how it is. But really quick, I just want to say the important part for us is to show up. And we had a few people in the party who were very busy, who did a lot of stuff in our rural areas. And we know Holly Bickmeyer and some other folks who were very active a number of years ago and had a motto, a philosophy that I think rings true, just as true today as it did 4 years ago: show up and give a shit. I think that is one of the most important things that we can do, is to show up all in our communities, which is why I'm organizing things in Senate District 26 instead of running to St. Louis City or County or whatever, because this is the battleground. This is a battleground for the values that we hold sacred, that we hold dear. I also want to add that, it being 4 rural counties, there are a lot of issues in these rural counties. I mean, it's not just gun murder, it's gun suicide. We discussed that a little bit at the march we did the other day. That's actually, it's a worse problem. We have the family farms, and I was looking up some statistics here of how many farms, like nearly half of the small to medium sized family farms disappeared in the early 2000s, and it's been taken over by all these corporate farms, okay, or corporate farmers, who really don't seem to have much respect for the neighborhood. Certainly, the Missouri legislature and now our governor have no problem in making sure that corporate farms can have whatever uh, rules that work for them. That allows them to poison water, poison our air, poison the ground, put 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 hogs next door to your property, et cetera, et cetera. The corporatization of some of these industries has really harmed, in general, the agriculture business all around. People over profit. I think we need to focus on what is good for the people first. And sure, I want businesses to make money. I am a business owner. People, hey, you're a communist and a socialist. Man, I've been doing Schedule C's and 1099s and cash and W-2, doing W-2s and stuff for 35 plus years. I'm not, and none of us are. The fact is that we want to make sure that workers make money, that people are getting a living wage, et cetera. So that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for healthcare. I'm fighting to make sure they get healthcare. I'm fighting to make sure that our roads and our bridges are safe. I'm fighting to make sure that everybody's extended their civil rights, whether they're white, male, straight, black, whatever. These are the things that we're fighting for, because in Missouri's legislature, see, I can have pages of notes on the thousands of pieces of legislation that are filed every year that cover hundreds of subjects, not just gay kids in school, not just quote unquote CRT. So when you're looking at electing a state legislator to Missouri's General Assembly, whether it's me or somebody else, you have to understand how much of Missouri's state policy affects your daily life, whether it's the roads, the bridges, the schools, your healthcare, et cetera, your job, your business. There are so many nuts and bolts that are in state policy that affect you. You can't just vote for somebody because they're anti-abortion. You can't just vote for somebody because they're pro-gun, because they very well may be anti every other thing that's really important to you. I'm John Kiehne. I'm running for state Senate, Missouri's 26th Senate District. And I, again, want to thank you, Glenn. Still only 42 minutes. We're looking for people to host events. I'm showing up at a lot of stuff. Of course, it's summertime, so we have a lot of events going on in the area. If you have an event you don't think I know about, tell me about it. I'd love to come check it out. If you'd like to host an event or help host an event in your community, more power to you. Love you. I'd love to do that. We're trying to identify our top Democrats in Senate District 26, because this is kind of, it's a bigger area for me. It's a bigger area for us. I'm doing this for myself, for Glenn, for everybody in the area, for the Missouri Democratic Party, and to try to build up support for Democratic values in Senate District 26. And before I go, getting people to the polls will help us to elect a U.S. senator in November, on November the 8th. So the people that we can get to the polls in Senate District 26 and beyond that may not have gone before because maybe they didn't have a Democratic candidate that they were all that attached to, maybe they will vote for our nominee for U.S. Senate and will not end up with Eric Greitens, okay? Or any of the Erics for that matter. So thank you very much. Thank you again.
John, you're a mess. A good mess. You're a hot mess. Hey,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna real quick. Let's go back to the corporate farms, because you were going to touch on the CAFOs, and I think what's the statistic? Like 20% of Missouri farms are owned by the Chinese or foreign interests. It's a big amount.
Well, there's a by statute a percentage of farmland that can be owned. I don't think it's 20%, but here's what happened. Long story short, Parson and those folks from the early, like about 8-10 years ago, started pushing this Right Farm thing. Right Farm went as a ballot initiative, and Right Farm, what it essentially did is it opened up Missouri farmland to foreign ownership. Smithfield Farms, who you probably heard of, they at the time were getting ready to sell to China, and so they knew what was going on. Parson knew what was going on, and because they got a bunch of money for their campaigns to make sure that right to farm passed. And as it turns out, we have a bunch of farmland, and it's corporate. So you talk about CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. That means, again, a bunch of animals in a building or several buildings that are all stuck together. They take, one of the big problems is they take all the waste, and they'll spray it on the farmland around them that's kept in reservoirs, stuff like that. Needless to say, not good for the air, not good for the soil, not good for the water, because it ends up, if you live in a rural area, you probably have well water. And if you have well water and your next door neighbor is over decades putting animal waste into the ground, sooner or later it's probably going to end up in your well. It's going to end up in your water. It's going to end up on your land, and you're not going to be able to walk outside your house because it smells like, pig. So big waste. So yeah, that's a big deal. Now, Iowa has over 10,000 CAFOs, 10,000, and they are saturated. So those corporate interests that are looking for opportunities are looking in states like Missouri, where we have like 500 or 600 corporate farms now. But as farmers are getting squeezed because of COVID, because of the tariff stuff that Trump did, because of a whole lot of market issues, because of a lack of processors, because of the cost of growing corn, of growing beans, and then what you get for it on the market, it's squeezing these family farmers out. They have to quit, and then a corporate farmer grows it up, buys it up, and so that is a big problem. Franklin County actually was opened up. I believe 90% of Franklin County was opened up to CAFOs. It was CAFOs and gun ranges and landfills, I think was the proposal there. So you definitely, if you're a farmer, residential, anything, business, you probably do not want a corporate farm next door to you. And it is just crushing our family farmers. And like I said, there's about 90,000 farms, 90,000-ish farms in Missouri. So you think about that, there's about 90,000 farms-ish, and about 500 or 600 of them are those corporate farms. So the vast majority of those now are family farms. But if the nature of the market and the nature of policy in Missouri continues to be the way it is, those family farms they're going to continue to go away. Again, my father lives on our farm. We have 108 acres, and somebody else farms it now. It's contracted out, but he makes $15,000 a year on 108 acres. So you grow some soybeans, some corn, and then you put some cows in there, does some hay. You can't live on $15,000. Actually, if you get $15,000 in the black in a farm in Missouri, that's actually not a bad thing for a lot of people, because my understanding is a lot of folks who are farming are just lucky to break even. They have to work somewhere else. They have to get their health care somewhere else. They have to, they just farming is not sustainable. And again, corporate farming, the whole corporate aspect of the farms, of the processing, of the distribution, and so forth and so on. An issue with huge grocery store chains is also an issue. The corporatization and the monopolization of grocery store chains is also, put a huge dent in farmers being able to get their stuff to the market and to get a fair price for it.
All right. So pro farmer, pro local farming. That'd be great, John. You covered all the bases, and I wish you all the luck in the world. People out there, get out to vote. Get out to vote for John Kiehne. Help him out any way you can. John, give us one more time your website.
www.johnkiehne.com. It's JOHNKIEHNE.com.
All right. John, thanks. We're going to call it a night, and I'll get this up on YouTube as quick as I can, and we'll talk again.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it, Glenn. Again, I love that you're doing these things. They are a great service to voters and to the candidates.
Thanks, John.
And the issue.
Well, we're trying to get the word out, brother. The whole idea is let people know that there is a difference between the political parties, and you've represented your positions very, very well. Thanks again, John. Take care.